Okay, so night dives, day dives, all
Got a
that.
guy that's trying to call wind.
They love it.
Sounds like it.
I'm not a diver, so I don't get it.
It reminds me of, it sounds silly, but if you go into Jimmy John's, they'll have these sayings on the wall. And they, on one of the wall talks about a rich man going to like an island area, and this man is fishing and comes in. He talks about like him like chasing the money dream, you know. And at the end of the whole story, he's like, "Well, what would I do then?" Well, you could retire on an island and fish for fun. He's like, "I'm doing that now."
They love it. I mean, they had to, after 10 years, they gotta come off the island for a year. If you're not a citizen,
Oh,
you gotta come off of it for a year. And they did, they come off, went to Houston, worked for NASA for a year, NASA. And then went, as soon as their US up, they went right on down.
boat captain.
He was,
It's up there
he
at.
trained the astronauts.
Oh,
They've got a
yeah.
pool there, the replica of the space station.
Mhm.
Three-quarter replica, and that's where they trained down in that pool.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime an astronaut was in the pool, he had to be in there with them. Divers had to be in there with them.
The May Planning Commission meeting for Mayflower, Arkansas, May 13th, 2025, 6:30 p.m. Barbara, will you please call?
Stephen Smedley,
Here.
Rusty Waters, Randy Holman,
Here.
Chad Patterson, Ed Brown.
Can I get a motion to suspend the normal rules and accept the meetings from the last meeting as written versus reading them all out?
I'll make a motion to accept minutes.
Thank you. Second. Chad, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Thank you, that passes. First up, we have the Center Ridge subdivision. Is anyone here to talk about it?
No, it was kind of a placeholder given our last meeting that we had with the development team, but they will be here next month with the final. And they move forward at that point. They're just doing a little bit of value engineering right now.
Okay, sounds good. We have, I think the mayor sent us something here for the new archway. Mr. Mayor, do you want to speak to that, or is anyone here to speak? Oh, you said Andy could be here. Sure.
Andy couldn't be here tonight. He asked me if I would present that. I had sent you the, he was requesting the signage to go over at the Art Care new facility. I didn't know if you could send that out to everyone. He sent 3, while you're sending that out. He's got 3 different areas, one on the building, one in front of the building beside the road, and then at the 3-way stop on the corner. Are you able to
Yep, I just sent it to your guys' email.
forward that?
Yeah. So, Chris, I was talking with the mayor. Do you remember, did we not rezone that for them?
If memory serves, they declined because of future growth plans on that. For whatever reason, that I don't know.
What was it?
The art care parcel, the old admin building. I do remember a legal description coming by. I wasn't prepared for this, so I don't have any information to give you.
I thought we rezoned it. I know we did a parking space variance, but I thought we had rezoned it so that they could move down there. And I thought we were done commercial, so then I know the signs issue really wouldn't be that big of a deal.
I was under the impression it's still R1, we gave them a conditional use permit to occupy that space.
Is that what we did?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not it's not a rezoning, because if it had done that, it would have had to go before the city council in an
Right.
ordinance.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right, I don't believe it was rezoned.
we did,
I
we
don't
did
believe it was
reason.
rezoned. I believe there was a variance that y'all gave them to change, to convert that from an admin building or some type of school use building to this, medical clinic.
So it was
Is that what-
conditional use, yeah,
Okay.
based on that. And I want to say this issue, the signage came up before, and when we were talking about that conditional use, our signage regulations, since this is going to be directly in front of an R1 neighborhood, the signage issue was kind of important, so they withdrew what they were talking about initially. And we're back at it now, which is fine. It's perfectly fine to have that discussion, but I don't have the rules and regs to really guide you. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend.
Okay, so perhaps we need to table this.
Yeah, I would ask them to come back so that we can, number one, review exactly how that's zoned. See what the rules are and see what kind of variance. To Chris's point, since it is right in front of a neighborhood, we might need to do something like ask the neighbors, hey, are you opposed to this? Do you have an alternative if you are? Since it is in a residential area, you know, they probably have some expectation that there won't be a bunch of business signs around their houses. So we could probably at least talk to those homeowners and see if they're opposed or have any other ideas for signage. I mean, it's not for, you know, like a chop shop or something, it's for hardware. So I mean, it's for a medical thing, it's gonna be helping kids, so I don't think too many people would have that big of a problem with it, but.
And I think
we should
also,
still ask.
isn't this primarily, it's usage for the students and faculty?
Well, they'll have priority.
Right,
But
but it
anyone-
also is going to be open, facility for the public,
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
anyone can go, but the kids will have, priority.
Priority, yes.
Yeah, so they gotta get their stuff, probably get back to class.
So with that, I'm sorry that you didn't get this out. So we just need to look at what the zoning is and then advise accordingly.
Let's confirm the zoning, figure out what rules and regulations govern where they're looking. Because it's out of the overlay, so we're just dealing with base zoning over there. But if memory serves, it was all conditional use, and really you can't exceed the conditional use that the planning commission gave.
Right.
And then now they're going retroactively trying to gain some additional approval, which is fine, it's over discussion. I think at the most, a building sign that's not illuminated affixed to the building, but an illuminated sign out front of that, I don't think that would fit very well in that neighborhood.
I don't think it's illuminated.
Well, they've got that one illuminated sign there that's bright enough that the people at Space Station use it for navigation. So I don't think another one's gonna, I mean, that thing is so bright, that's like the brightest LED sign I think I've ever seen in my life. I saw a lady run into that ditch one night because she couldn't see the road because the sign was so bright, and she ran off over into that ditch.
Yeah, the minutes read, and I'm not going to read all of it, but the parking spaces, remember that, it says parking spaces, but with the property being zoned commercial for a clinic 12, parking spaces are required. So I don't know. We might know.
I don't recall going through that public comment.
Yeah.
That may have just been some verbiage that was used.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I don't recall the only rezoning I remember going in front of council for was the agriculture for the.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
For the
think it
area.
was rezoned,
Yeah.
we didn't rezone. So why don't we do this so that we make sure that we have following the proper procedures? Let's table this until Chris can look into it and see exactly what we need. I was not, well, there's no need to go ahead and talk any further, we're going, table it, but I don't think, the site is going to be electrical.
Yeah.
But let's verify that.
Sure.
And see, okay. And I'll call Andy tomorrow.
Yeah.
And let him know.
Yeah, there's nothing in his document here that says anything about illumination, so.
Right.
It may just be just a standard stand there signing should be great.
Right.
Yeah, I think you might ask him, to where you could go ahead and start maybe canvassing and see if there's any objections to this. That way he's not waiting a month for us to tell him to go do that.
Could, so he would need to almost like a variance,
Like if.
send out a letter to all the landowners within 300 feet. Would that be the proper thing, or would that be?
I think that might be a little premature, let me dig into it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay, all right, we'll wait until you look into it, and then we'll follow the procedure that Chris sets forth.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
You're gonna need a bigger closet for all your hats, Chris. Okay, let's see. I believe that was the last thing. That's the last, agenda item we have. We're gonna go through some of the UDOs since we have time. I also want to schedule another, UDO workshop. So let's do that real quick before we get into it. I will be out for the next about a week and a half. I won't be back in time until the 27th. What does the 29th look like?
What day of the week?
The Thursday. 6:30.
I'm good with it.
Works for me. Is that the only day of that week?
Okay. Anybody have any objections to that? Then Thursday, May 29th at 6:30 will be our next UDO workshop. We can start, get back into the, Chris, where did we leave off?
That is an interesting question, it's been a minute.
Yep. Last time, I thought we left off somewhere I was completely mistaken.
I wanna say we kinda ended right before we got into development standards.
Page 60,
I'm kinda looking at 39, Article 4.
39.
If I may, we want to open this up to any comment, if anybody has anything to say before we
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
dive into this.
Yeah, anyone have any comments? We'll be going over the UDO also, so you're definitely free to comment on that. For those who don't know, the UDO is going to replace our existing ordinances in zoning. So our ordinances and zoning over the years have just been kind of stacked on top of each other instead of actually like going in and revising. So we have ordinances and zoning laws that contradict each other. Then we have some that don't speak to anything at all, and it's a gap where allow someone to come in. Chris identified an issue last week where we had a gap in our zoning that would allow commercial interest to come in and just start it without getting permits, coming before the planning commission, and then anyone can just come in and start throwing some wood, call it a day. So, that's where we're at currently. So now we're, instead of handing you a massive bowl of spaghetti and saying, straighten it out in straight lines, we're throwing spaghetti out, we're bringing in a smaller bowl, and it's going to have portions on both sides. And everything will run together and everything will be tied up. That's what the UDO is. UDO is developed nationally for small communities. We are working with MetroPlan, who work in, every state has its own Metro Plan. They're federally funded, so we're not paying a ton of money for this. MetroPlan in Arkansas has developed the UDO as a template for small communities so that they don't have to redo everything. They don't have to reinvent the wheel. Someone's already done it and they know it works, so we can do it. Someone's already done it, we know it doesn't work, so we're gonna avoid that. So we're gonna learn vicariously, and that's what the UDO is. The UDO is a template, so we are modifying it, tweaking it to make it fit what Mayflower wants, not necessarily what is good for Greenbrier, or is good for Conway or Maumelle. We're gonna, there'll be a lot of things in here that we do use, and we all use sewers, but there are different things that we wanna tweak, like I say, 40-foot lot line, we want 60 foot, so we'll change that and make it 60. So it's a template, and we'll tweak it for Mayflower. So that's what the UDO is. And that's what we've been working on with the plan commission. We'll go through it, we'll get it how we like it, what we think is good. It'll go to the city council. City council will review it. We're also gonna have a public open house, open forum, where people will be able to present it, people can give feedback, we can make any modifications that need to be made. We'll go back, make those modifications, send it back to city council, and we'll get it voted, and then it'll become law. So that's it in a nutshell.
A lengthy process, to be sure.
Yeah, but definitely one that needs to be done to kind of unravel the codified mess that we've found ourselves in.
Well, and it's also keeping up with current laws and current business practices that our current code don't necessarily reflect. That being said, because we have made a few amendments to the Heart of Mayflower, our existing planning document. It's on the website now. It's been updated before that PDF. That's all we had. We didn't have a document that we could edit. So I spent the better part of the day actually recreating this document so we can edit it in the time that we're going to use it until this is implemented. And clean it up, make it a lot easier to follow. Didn't change any of the words, just change the way it's presented. And for a lay person, they can open that. It's a little easier to understand what it is and why it is. But as far as the actual code, nothing has been amended, other than what we passed the last meeting. I believe the only forthcoming change will have to do with the 40-foot lots and the interstate overlay and the creekside zone. But that is on the website now. If anybody wants that, it's there. But Article 4, I know we've got different versions of these books, and I've been hesitant to press Metro Plan on get additional paper copies, because once we work through this, we're going to redo it, and these will be thrown out. And B, federal funding being what it is right now.
Spirit day going tomorrow, back to next day.
I feel like we'll just make do with what we have until we're ready to present a polished product. But in the future and even now, all the screens are linked. We can throw this up. And I can bring my laptop, and as we go through it, we can start putting this stuff up so people can see what we're talking about and why we're talking about it. But my page is 39, Article 4, Development Standards. And this is kind of when we get into the individual zones and what the criteria is going to be in each zone. And I'm not going to read particularly like the next 5 pages. It's mostly just numbers. And, what we're talking about here is setbacks and lot widths and height of buildings. It's really nuts and bolts. So, I mean, for this, it's really up to, I guess, every one of us individually to go through and say, hey, this looks good to me, or strike stuff that doesn't, and we bring that up for discussion. Because I can read what's here just as easy as y'all can read it yourselves. But I guess the question is, when we're talking about development standards, again, just to go back, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 zones on the UDO. Obviously, we're going to strike that down to probably 4 or 5 at most. We're not going to have 11 zones.
That's too much for us.
I mean, I'm just saying, some of this stuff, the walkability and the centers, and the open spaces, I mean, we can have as many zones as we want. I just don't think we need as many that are presented here.
Okay.
It's just going to add to additional confusion.
Simple is better.
And that's, unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at now, where we have, 8 layers of base zoning and overlays and all this other stuff. We're trying to streamline this stuff where someone calls and says, hey, I'm at this address, what can I do on my land? There shouldn't be any question about that. You should be able to get a very quick answer to that. We're working towards that. Non-conforming lots and structures, I do have it highlighted 422, section A, any single lot or platted parcel of land which is built upon such that the structures, setbacks, yard space, open space, building height, location of parking do not comply with the requirements of the zone for which it is in, may be utilized for permitted use without a variance. And this is kind of going back to the non-conforming stuff. And we're going to run into this a lot. As we redraw the city's zones, we're going to have non-conforming pieces based on how that map rolls out. So we do need to have pretty robust language about allowing non-conforming uses in existing facilities, existing construction. I don't think anybody is open-minded that just because we rezone that we're going to expect people to make modifications or tear things down for 50-acre zoning. And this is kind of what this chapter is talking about. Section B is maintenance and remodels, internal alterations of non-conforming structures are going to be allowed. Where the city's not going to be able to come in and say, hey, your zone, industrial now, you can't fix up your home anymore. If you do, you're out of compliance. So these grandfathered uses will be allowed, and they will be allowed to be modified internally. Now, external modifications, adding on, making it bigger, making it larger, that's where the city can, if we agree to, say, hey, that's kind of beyond scope of the direction we're trying to go for this area. But your grandfather use internally, it's your house, it's your castle, it's your business.
So D, what about D there?
That's what I was wondering.
So,
A damaged or destroyed non-conforming structure may be reconstructed provided that the reconstruction or repair does not increase the non-conformance.
right, so you're not adding any additional structure to that.
So it's grandfathered in, tornado comes through, and they can build the exact same structure if they choose. Okay.
So if they've got a one-story single family, they could come in and put a duplex. Or a
Does that
two-family.
include, billboards? And
Yeah, it did, but
I'm sorry.
does that
That's a whole
include
different
billboards then? It says and structures. So I don't know, is that signage or is that different?
I wouldn't necessarily think this would fall under lots and structures. And again, that's verbiage that we can look at, and I can make a note, clarity on that.
Tree houses.
We don't,
Sheds.
yeah, I mean, we don't regulate, that kind of stuff. We do sheds.
Fences?
Fences, we kind of agreed that we just didn't have any appetite to regulate, period, except in the front yards.
Yeah, Taker.
Well, I was thinking about, I'm just spitballing here, but,
Sure.
The razor wire over here, and, it not really complying with Hardin Mayfire stuff and to each their own, but I guess under this guise, if it gets wiped out, they can put razor wire back up.
In theory, yes. If you're allowed to basically restore the original use that you suffered a loss on within a year. So, no lollygagging.
Yeah.
But again, this is all language that can be amended if there's any appetite to do so.
Was there a spot where somebody had 2 years to rebuild?
We kind of touched on this somewhere earlier.
If that's the case, I just wondered if this part should be consistent with that. So I thought we gave them 2 years earlier, and this one only gets 1 year.
So go back to page 9, your general non-conforming uses. Repairs and reconstruction allow the use to resume no later than 24 months after the original damage. Otherwise, all future use shall meet the standards of the UDO or the zone.
Yeah. And that only says start, so they only gotta put a shovel in the dirt for 4 months, they're good. But yeah, this one over here just seems kind of contradictory since it's the same thing, your property was destroyed. And here, the construction, the permit has to be done within a year. So should we make that 2 to be consistent with the other section, the other non-conforming use section?
Jason, what did you say? 2 years, oh, 24 months.
Page 9.
Yeah.
Page 9.
Yes.
So it's be Article 3, Section H under non-conforming uses.
Yes.
Here's my B says 300, okay, yours says that, so that's a year. Yeah.
Subsection F.
Okay. It's a year, the non-conformance is 365 days.
Yeah.
Well, so I believe in subsection B, it's referencing strictly like abandoned property or stuff that paused for greater than a year. Then subsection F references actual physical damage or fire damage and stuff like that. So if you vacate the property and sits abandoned and unused greater than a year, then you're subject to the new terms of that zone.
So wouldn't that be, example, someone mentioned tornado hits? Wouldn't that be basically the same thing as a fire? You have to have, got to clean the lot or clean the property. But here it's saying, I think this is what you're alluding to, James, that it's, there's some confusion that it's talking about 365 days to 24 months, where we're talking about 1 year versus 2 years.
Yeah, I think like we should specify, if we're gonna keep like a homeowner has 2 years if the home is destroyed, insurance calls an act of God, tornado, fire, flood, all those types of things that are beyond our control.
And I think that's what subsection F does, it just says if it's damaged or destroyed.
Yeah.
So I think the disconnect between Article 3 and Article 4, that subsection B, it's just saying that a complete building permit for reconstruction has to be submitted within a year. Doesn't say that the repairs have to be facilitated and completed within a year. You just have to have a building permit issued within 1 year of the loss. And then you're allowed 2 years to complete those repairs.
I think we should add on D to make that clarification that you have 2 years, and we could even reference this section. You have 2 years to start the repairs, but the permit has to be done within a week. Basically, the city has to know you plan on doing something with the land. You're not just gonna let it sit there and rot.
Because once you secure that within a year, then that negates section B where if it's idle for a year,
Right.
it's subject to new zoning.
Yes. Yeah, just put a sentence in there to clarify that, 1 year for just sitting there, if you abandon it in a year, it's gonna get resolved. If it's destroyed by a tornado, you're gonna have 2 years to get things together. That takes time.
I'm just gonna put a note for me to kind of reference it back to 3.1 section H.
Cool. Thank you, sir. So then, on page 40, table 4243, line B, we definitely need to change the 50 minimum to 60. And then, do we just want to strike that second part? I'm not familiar with it. 42-foot minimum if it's 1.5 stories in parking off the rear alley.
Which one again?
Line B, page 40.
Lot width.
Under
Lot
neighborhood
width.
residential.
So there is some existing verbiage, even in the heart of Mayflower, there references different setback criteria versus if you have the two-car garage in front versus you have an access and alley in the back. I don't know what those exact numbers are. But I believe kind of the intent of the council and the planning commission, pretty much everybody is maintaining that 60-foot lot width.
Yes, sir.
Kind of across the board. So, I mean, that's a quick strike, if we just wanted to include that and to strike everything else.
Yeah, the 60-foot minimum.
Yep.
That keeps it simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. If anyone needs a variance to that, they can come in and ask for it. We can review it.
So do we want to potentially say 60-foot minimum, but put a PC, it's permitted with conditions, or we have some kind of language in here to say, you know, this can be challenged if you have a smaller lot you're wanting to develop?
Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that we've talked about, I've even had a couple of developers call me and ask me, they would like to build, let's say they found 10 acres within the city limits. If they could come in and build the entire acreage in patio homes or zero lot line homes, that type of thing, where 60 foot would not, they would come in and ask for permission or approval. But under that, it wouldn't be an individual home asking, this would be what they would want for the entire subdivision of that nature. That doesn't preclude, this doesn't preclude them from coming in and requesting that. But as far as an individual, I was thinking of everybody's, that we talked about before, we had developers come in and said that they wanted 50-foot lots, or they wouldn't build. And we said, no, we're not going to a 50-foot lot subdivision.
Well, I know Highway Engineering came back.
Right.
They several times
That was the second or third group that did that.
And we can even create, you know, if there is the desire to create, you know, like a patio type area, we can create a zoning section.
Isn't that
That's
flexible
what-
residential?
But
That's kind of what I
Yeah.
wondered, is that, yeah, the flexible residential's in there, and it's got a whole bunch of different ones that's already set up to kind of.
So it'd be a zoning conversation.
that's right. At the point in time that a developer or whatever would come in and say, hey, there's a piece of property over here within the city limits, what I'd like to do is, here's the layout of that subdivision, where we're going to do something besides a traditional subdivision.
Mhm.
And with that, then the planning commission would make a determination based on their plans and this type of thing. I could see that happening. A specialized conditional use, I guess, would be the definition of that. But that, they would have to come in and, depending on the situation.
Yeah, for something like that, I would think we wouldn't want to run it through the variance process, because they're gonna build basically a little community.
Right.
So, but there's too many factors to really be accounted for with variances.
That's right.
So we do need a zoning section for that type of community, so that we can just go ahead and lay it all out. And then if something, you know, if they need a variance to one of the things we already put into the code, then we can do that on a one-off basis. But to do a whole community with variances,
No.
it'd be a nightmare.
No, that's
And
right.
tracking
There-
what was done when, and.
This would be on an as-needed basis or a case-by-case basis, where someone would come in and say, hey, this is a piece of property, I'd like to buy it, doing their due diligence, come in and set forth all of the overview or site plan, whatever you want to call
Well,
it.
they could petition to rezone simultaneously with the site plan application, bring all this at the same time. To see, you know, kind of give us all work.
And then we'd get the recommendation of the city council.
Yeah, if they have to vote for the rezone. Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, if someone wanted to do that, they build a little retirement community. Our seniors over here are ready for some new members in, senior building, so bring them all.
And that's, I'm trying to talk to a developer
Yeah.
about that various thing.
It'd be great.
They were wanting to look at, somewhat of, some people call them patio homes, some people call them zero lot lines, this sort of thing. But where they would come in and out of that, what was built, that whoever developed a subdivision would have actually workers, almost like ongoing HOA, where they go in and they continue to keep all the properties maintained, that type of thing, so the individual that is purchasing that, or whatever, that the entire subdivision,
Yeah.
or that particular area would be, kept up, very nice, mostly geared to our senior citizens.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that comes about, but we're in just the talking stages right now.
I think that'd be fantastic if we got like a senior community like that.
Yes.
You know, we gave more area. I think that'd be wonderful.
I'm not biased at all, but as code enforcement, that sounds amazing. And I'm all for it.
I'm sorry.
Sounds
As a code enforcement, that sounds amazing.
one point of contact.
But I do know in the last council meeting and even our special meeting as well, this very topic has come up about having some mechanism, some criteria for smaller lots, smaller homes, in a very planned use area. And we can absolutely carve that out, and we can have all the zones we want. We don't necessarily have to apply those on our maps right now. But we can go ahead and establish that criteria, so when that opportunity does present, we can petition to have that area rezoned.
And then we can make modifications versus having to create it from scratch. So probably a simpler process to modify versus create.
But I still think, even with this flex area, there's a lot of flexibility in there. So that we might want to tighten up. I don't know. And I can look at some other jurisdictions and see what they're doing.
Yeah, I would imagine it's probably pretty close to this. Since Metro Plan works with every small community in the state, or will, I would imagine most of them are probably fairly close.
So we don't want to mess with any of the lot widths on that flexible. We'll kind of put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the manufactured homes, we want to amend that the same, 60 foot.
Is that,
I would
So we were
say
talking-
so.
we were talking the other day in council about that, and I thought that there was maybe some appetite for actually shrinking it in a mobile home community.
We don't actually have an actual park with that facility doesn't exist, and I do agree, if you actually had manufactured home park, yes,
Yeah.
the density should be significantly smaller. But if you've got manufactured homes, mobile homes, or whatever you want to term them, mixed in with R1 and R2,
Then they should definitely go by the
you want
60.
that to blend in
Yeah.
Yeah.
existing neighborhood.
Well, if it goes away, you want the lot size.
Yeah.
Well, and also how they came about too, if you'll remember, the council, did they pass a resolution that stated from now on, there would be no more gravel driveways. And with that, people pointed out, well, what about mobile homes? And the appetite for the council was, well, again, they need to
You're in a
comply with.
residential neighborhood.
So in that situation, like you said, it wouldn't be, we don't have a mobile home park. This is the individual lots that we're talking about. And, as you said, say that the mobile home or manufactured home goes away, it still needs to be representative of that 60-foot minimum, across the entire.
For future development.
That's right.
Different change.
So, yeah, so we'll definitely change that to 60 foot. And we can strike the 42 foot minimum thing for, like we did for residential.
Well, so I go back, and if you look at the lot size requirement above that, it does talk about a clustered subdivision versus a manufactured home park. So they've kind of split that. We want to leave that criteria in for a park, then if it's in the neighborhood. Because right now, in our existing code, we have R1 MH. So we got a manufactured home, so, zone that you're allowed to have single-family homes and flying with mobile homes as well.
But if that's a mobile home park, they would have to come in just like anything else.
That's commercial project.
That's commercial, and then even so, that would be part of the, request to have this type of neighborhood or development within the confines of wherever it would go. And then that would be if that was approved, then that would be a special, request. And then it would follow suit with those requests, that those lots would be narrow, based on just the collection or the size of that mobile home park. We haven't experienced anything like that as of yet.
No.
But it would be the same situation we talked about before, whether it be patio homes or whatever, so a developer comes in, here's a piece of property, X number of acres, we'd like to do this. That would be on a case-by-case basis, that it would be approved or not approved, right?
Yeah.
And with that, if it was, then within that confines of that development, then you would expect, less than the 60 foot if you're putting those type of homes in.
Right. And I think that this category is, I mean, looking at the grid, it's just kind of like, they're like, okay, we need a residential category that catches everything else. And it's just a multi-purpose category. And so they just kind of threw everything that they could into it. So yeah, I think it's that area that, you know, kind of like Chris said, we might have it on the books, we might not ever actually employ it until we actually have a need. Someone come along and say, hey, we want to do this. Okay, great, you'll fit into this category.
So are we wanting to amend that language, or?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. What would you recommend amending it to?
I really feel like,
I mean, we could add something about mobile homes in there.
well, my concern right now is I don't see a category that kind of fits what we have now. Because I look at this, it's manufactured home residential, as like a manufactured home park. And right now, I don't see a category that allows that blended use that we have right now.
Mobile homes and
Site built homes.
And I mean,
that, yeah, that's what I think it might fit into that flexible residential where we could add in.
But it doesn't allow for flexible, it doesn't allow for manufactured homes.
Yeah, we'd have to put it in, we'd have to add.
and are we wanting to do that?
Well, that's not.
Because right now, we got like 4 streets that we allow mobile homes on.
Yeah, and they'll be grandfathered in, right?
I almost feel like we need to recreate what we have on the books here in one of these columns, or create a new column for like R1 MH that we have now.
Yeah.
And then leave this as a standalone for future mobile home parks and manufactured home subdivisions and stuff like that. Because the way I look at these residential columns, it really doesn't address kind of that blended use that we have right now for mobile homes and site builds.
Right. Yeah, we would have to throw it into one of them, because this doesn't, or create a new.
I'm sorry, and maybe I'm being crass about it, but is that something we're wanting to do, is allow that to happen? I mean, I thought we were like, no more mobile homes in Mayflower. I thought that was kind of our stance.
Well, we can't say no, because, they're still permitted in the zones that R1MH is designated.
The Fair Housing Act.
Oh.
That was in place at one point, but then the Fair Housing Act kind of did away with that.
Okay.
So,
But right now, that's only in that designated area.
correct, and right now, what I see here, we don't have anything in the UDO that would kind of allow that specific use. Where you could say R1MH, yes, you can have a manufactured home, but I can also have a site-built home, same lot line, same lot width, same everything. Because you wouldn't want to zone that, low density or, residential, because that's only site-built homes, and that precludes mobile homes. So we need another definition, but kind of that dual use.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the area where it's designated that mobile homes are allowed, is it also, you can have a mobile home, if I remember correctly, that we drive through, you'll have a mobile home, one or two, and then you'll have a regular stick-built home. So, but doesn't that particular area, doesn't it indicate that that is the area where you can put a mobile home?
Correct.
But it does not indicate that that particular area is only a mobile home park.
Correct.
So it's almost on a lot by lot basis, is it
Well,
not?
So you're pretty much up to, you could do a site built, you don't have to get the city's blessing or permission. Obviously, you're taking out a building permit to build, but if you got a lot that's open right now, you could put a site built home or a manufactured home.
And again, being specific.
So you're talking about like Dam Road?
Yeah,
Not Dam Road.
Pine Tree.
particularly Pine Tree Loop, Gary.
Yeah, but all the little
Jackson.
roads that come off of Dam Road.
Right. You could put, the way I'm understanding this, you can put a house there, it's zoned for mobile homes. But if you put a site-built house there, it has to meet the setbacks as it would in an R1.
it's like Paradise Circle in Norwood.
Yeah.
Those are all R1MH neighborhoods, predominantly mobile home, manufactured homes. Still have site built homes there. I feel like we probably need to create another category to address those zones in our city. Because it's not just manufactured homes, it's a blend.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you made them all 60 foot, something happened, they're not gonna be able to go back in there with them. Right?
They can, if it's in that zone.
It'll be grandfathered
Every
in.
year.
It is grandfathered now.
A year to get the permit, 2 years to finish the rebuild. They can rebuild.
But there's still nothing to preclude them from bringing in another mobile home 5 years from now. Because we don't have a restriction on bringing manufactured housing into these zones. It's permissible.
I understand the grandfathered in, but that's just kind of like billboard signs over here. We'll say, for instance, Mayflower set 1,000 foot between signs. Them on that side of the interstate are 300 foot, set by the state. Okay? So if them signs fall over there, or one or two of them fall, three of them fall, they can't go back up because they don't meet the 1,000 foot criteria anymore, correct?
As far as the billboard code, I've not really looked at that chapter in our code.
Oh, okay,
So,
well, I know that's how the state does it. You
I
know,
know-
that's why I was
City
wondering
code
about the
does.
mobile homes, that if you're in an area that you're grandfathered in, and it gets blown away, then that grandfathered, you're no longer grandfathered, that becomes a 60-foot lot.
Well, with the UDO, you would have that year, if it was a flood, fire, or whatever, you could rebuild that non-conforming use, as long as you got that building.
So you can just put another mobile home right back in there.
Correct.
So I get that part, but why wouldn't we just say low residential, and everyone's grandfathered in, and then that way, if someone wants to build up, they can. I'm not understanding why we're trying to match what we have now.
Well, and so is the appetite to stop manufactured homes from coming in? Are we trying to basically erode these districts? I mean, that's the sense.
I mean, I don't, yeah, I mean, I would probably choose better words than erode, but, you know, upgrade maybe.
Well, I don't know legally if we can do that.
Okay. Okay,
So in my head, I'm trying to maintain
Right.
the mixed use areas that we have.
yeah,
So the whole grandfather notion's not coming into my mind because the structures are legal as they sit now. They can replace them right now. There's nothing we can do about it.
Sure.
There's nothing we should do
Right.
about it.
Right.
It's their home.
right.
So and I see where y'all are coming from, but it's not something that should be grandfathered because it's a permissible use. And so there is nothing to say that if it's blown away. Or
Right.
A
Yeah.
site-built home, you can tear it down and put a mobile home on it right now in that area.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If it's zoned
R1
R1
MH.
MH, yes, exactly.
And so that's my thought process, is trying to find some criteria that protects those corridors that we have, unless we want to do something different.
I think it's just a,
But what you also are understanding is that we're not broadening or growing that particular
No.
Area.
It's a finite area.
To your point, are we trying to do away with it? We're trying to keep what we've got, where you got some area, some of those lots within that particular zone area deemed, you can put a mobile home in. But right beside it, you can also build a stick build.
Mm-hmm.
So with the scenario, if you have a tornado or whatever that's blown away, think about it, if you own that property, and let's say that mobile home was 25 years old, hypothetically, but you still own that property. I think we'd be in a lawsuit if we came back and said, oh, well, I'm sorry, you can't put another mobile home there, but you've lived there for 25 years. You see what I'm saying?
You mean if it was blown away or
It was
something?
blown away. Yeah, you know.
Well, under the nonconformity, they can, right?
So, so to answer your question, as it sits right now, you know, they're gonna be allowed to rebuild
Right.
regardless of duration, regardless of.
Within that zone.
So, but if we could rezone, we could absolutely say R1 MH is gone, we're gonna do low residency or low density residential, or we're gonna do flexible residential, and all this is gonna be zoned. But that's when the grandfather clause will kick in.
Right.
We say, all right, so Paradise Circle, it's got a ton of manufactured homes on it. If you know, a calamity happens, natural disaster, fire, or whatever, and they don't get that permit within a year to rebuild, then the new zoning criteria kicks in. So we
Yeah.
can absolutely do that. That's entirely up to, you know, to the planning commission and city council if we want to make that change.
Okay.
You know, we can do that citywide. I mean, but are we trying to, you know, thin out the mobile home districts within our community? Is the ultimate question.
I think we need to give this a lot of thought,
Yes, sir.
because, you know, it would be deemed that we're trying to penalize a person that is living in a manufactured home or a mobile home. If you really want to look at this from a standpoint of today's construction processes, mobile homes today and manufactured homes cannot be compared to years ago. The standards that are built today, in a lot of cases, when you go in these homes, you don't even know that it's a mobile home. You see what I'm saying? So I don't want people to think that we don't find value in that and that we're valuing that less. And I don't think that we want to basically say, okay, even in this area that is zoned for both, that we want to change that and get rid of the mobile homes. I think what we want to do is keep what we've got in that zoning area. We're not trying to grow that area, but there is a place for mixed use there. And personally, I don't see a problem with that. Because that, if you look at it, that is providing a need for a group of people.
Well, so would it be easier, just for the sake of argument, to add language back into that flexible residential? Just have something for manufactured homes, 50-foot lots, same criteria, 60-foot, excuse me, that we base everything else on. Since for the most part, it is a flex, Paradise Circle, I'll come back to that, Trails End, stuff like that. They're largely a mixed use area anyway.
Yeah, and, let's face it, and I don't know what the size of the lots are in this mixed use area. I don't know if you've got some 60-foot lots for a stick-built home. And then you go right beside it, if there's a 50-foot lot or a 40-foot lot.
Lots.
That's what I was gonna say. If I remember correctly, there are a hodgepodge of all of these different sizes within this area. Well, we can't go in and somebody's got a 50-foot lot right now and tell them, oh, you gotta have a 60-foot lot. How does that work? Do you get the water hose out and, water it at night so that it grows? I mean, that, to me, that's not even realistic.
It's not, but, we're just looking at criteria to establish. Given the opportunity, if you're purchasing land or multiple parcels, doing new development, new construction in that area, the expectation would be 60 foot.
And I think around the lake, when it was established,
Yeah.
they are 50-foot lots, and there's houses on 50-foot lots. They do not have the side setbacks. They're really close together, even over in my area where I live. But that's how it was developed, it was 50-foot lots, but those were gonna be like little fishing cabins. People were gonna come up and use them for weekends. Well, people come up, fell in love, decided they're gonna come up here and live. And so that's
Cabin turned into a permanent home.
exactly what I'm.
Well, and I'm kind of in the boat that we need to phase out mobile homes, but that's just my opinion. But I will say that I don't think we should put a clause in one of the residential areas that could affect somewhere else when we're really just trying to focus on that.
So I agree, that's why in my head, to create a new zone.
Yeah, maybe a new zone that just,
Solely on that.
It needs to be specific to what we already have.
So can I just, for the next meeting, I will create a new column, we'll just make a little amendment to this, table 423, and I will copy and paste our current zoning and regulations for R1MH.
okay.
And we'll see what that looks like, we'll know with the rest of it.
It's just like your call you went on there, that wrong. Well,
Is there a difference between mobile homes and modular homes
Yes.
spelled out here?
Oh, I don't know.
We haven't got that far yet.
Okay.
I'm not sure how they assign the definition.
I would agree.
There is certainly.
There is a difference.
There is.
But in here.
A mobile home, you can get FHA financing and stuff,
Yeah.
any kind of financing for it, mobile home, can
Yeah.
they couldn't.
they're built different too. They're built, the codes, they're built the same code as you build a house that's right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what the mayor was saying. You walk into some of them, you don't even know that it's manufactured.
No.
You think it's stick built, it's just the way it's built. It's so solid, on the
But
foundation.
my problem is over there is that everything's so close together.
Yeah.
If this one catches fire, there's a pretty good chance this one, and this one's
Right.
And that's one of the reasons we have 60-foot lot lines.
Right.
Is for fire prevention, because if one goes, multiples are going.
I think a lot of that, 'cause it talks about not just the non-conforming structure, but also the non-conforming line.
Which that,
So, to your point, smaller lot sizes aren't accepted out of the grandfather clause, that's all included. And I
I'm
think,
getting to know how many lots this, or that section that is, allows mobile home. Do we happen to know how far that area spans and the number of lots that are included in that?
No, off the top of my head, I can get that information. But we're not talking about a lot of real estate.
No.
So I'm of the mind to kind of protect what we got and have those corridors identified. And in the future, once this is passed, you know, everything kind of settles. We want to go and start fine tuning and narrowing things down a little bit, then we can absolutely do that.
There's some beautiful areas over there that people wouldn't want to build just because of the surrounding
You're right.
spots. So, I mean,
Well-
I think it would be the planning commission's intent to take one on the chin to try to upgrade those areas.
If you're talking about kind of everything that's beyond, you know, the overpass in Paradise, like Ridge Road
Hmm.
and Paradise Circle and Trails in, and you've got some of that Paradise Landing back there, that's all. You know, that all kind of falls into this zone.
Maybe a battle for another day. Huh?
Yeah.
When that lake is all full and pristine again. I don't know.
Everyone's plugged in.
So I will have that for the next meeting. We'll look at what those standards are. But as it is right now, so the way I'm looking at this column for manufactured home residential, I'm looking at a manufactured home park. So that's how I'm viewing this column, criteria assigned to that.
You said the RLH?
Yes. So do we want to keep that at 50, or are we looking even in a manufactured home park?
Yeah, I would think we would shrink that down.
To 50, or leave their recommendations, or take it to 60?
Thoughts on mobile home park lot lines?
I mean, mobile home parks, they're real close, aren't they? I mean, how close are they?
So this is calling for 50-foot minimum.
Seems like some of the ones in Conway I've seen are a lot
They're
closer. Yeah. It's like just enough to park a vehicle.
Right. Driveway and.
About 20 foot.
I mean,
40 feet?
We'll put an asterisk on this, because I do
Is there a
want to look
place
at their
you could put a mobile
terms.
home park?
Hmm?
Is there a place you could put a mobile home park? Maybe?
I mean, I didn't think there was a place for two subdivisions. Sure.
Well, I'm just putting a little land around.
Yeah, and I mean, but I mean,
Zoning.
and in the future, you know, future annexations or anything, there would be small land opening up.
All right, so on this page, kind of our current code, Barbara, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we're talking about residential lots and building coverage, current code is a third of the lot, 33.3% you can use of your lot for actual building structures. So line item D, there's quite a bit different from our current code.
Getting 60%.
And that's been a sticking point with some people I've had some conversations with, you know, being told, yeah, I can buy an acre of land, but I can only use a third of it to actually put structures on and develop it. But that's the way our current code would be.
There's validity in that comment.
Yeah, you know, as long as they're meeting the setbacks.
you know, I mean, that also comes with the flooding issue that we have here. I mean, if we decrease that, we're increasing runoff.
House level.
Less grass, less ground.
Yeah, if you pave the whole lot, the rain is all gonna run off. So,
But you're talking about a residential lot?
Yeah, you said if we go from 30 to like 50 or 60% that you can build on, you're gonna have more water runoff because the ground, the dirt is not there to absorb it anymore.
But again, we're talking about residential, right?
Right.
So like my house is on about an acre. If I decided to cover 60% of it. It's a lot less growing, but all that water that used to get absorbed is gonna now wind up on Cross Street headed towards the pond or the lake. Because my lawn's not gonna be there to absorb it anymore. Well, it will increase the water discharge if
Oh, I understand.
we increase it, but at the same time, I understand 30% of the.
From like you can do it. You just have to route the water around your property. It's weird. It's possible. But it'll put a lot more pressure on you to make sure that's constructed properly.
Well, and so, I mean, that's problematic.
Yeah.
And again, even with some of the state law changes that have occurred in this last legislative session regarding inspections and, you know, what the city can and can't inspect. And, we've got a lot of changes in that regard coming down. I don't know, but to the previous point, the column right below it is impervious surface coverage in relation to the building coverage percentage. Again, talking about runoff. Pretty much across the board, we're looking at 33% in the city of Mayflower for every zoning as we sit here and talk tonight. Some of this is doubling, if not tripling, I mean, what's here. I mean, some of it's going up to 80% of your lot can be covered.
Just to clarify, Chris, where are we now?
We're still on the same table, 423 on page 40. We've just kind of gone down from lot widths and lot depths. So we're on line item D and E relating to building coverage. On page 40. So like the first column, you can have 30% in the agricultural zone, 40% below residential, 60 in the neighborhood residential, 70 in the flexible residential, up to 90 in the walkable town center.
Yeah, we're not even gonna have use for that.
But even in our commercial corridors and industrial, it's allowing 80% of that lot to be developed with structures. 75% industrial.
You know,
That might be about right. I think about like arts.
I think it's important that you go to Bologna, there's land everywhere. You know, here in Mayflower, we're limited from floodplain and slopes and the lake and whatnot. So I do think it's important that we maintain a large percentage of the lot to be able to build upon. So I think there's a lot of value in that. We don't want to limit our land use here. But I mean, I guess I talk around myself. On the flip side, you can always kind of go up with things too. So right now it's 30%.
33.3%.
It's low.
We should at least have 50%. I mean, at least let someone use half their land.
And again, I mean, these values can change based on, you know, the zoning as well.
I mean, somebody could want to just put a little shed outside to put their lawn tools in. If their house is already a third of their land, they can't put a tool shed up there.
Current code, you're right.
I mean, we should be able to do that. It's their land, you know? I understand we don't want 90% of a green space covered in asphalt. Absolutely getting to need, we want that land out there, but still, I think a third is kind of restrictive.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, again, so if we're kind of looking through these corridors, is there a maximum that we want to entertain that?
Well, I can see commercial using a lot more, you know, like I use the example of Harps. It's a parking lot, gas station, or grocery store. You know, I mean, they've got most of their land pretty well covered, and it makes sense. I mean, you know, I don't go to Harps looking to have a picnic in the grass.
Well, but also on a commercial you know, you're going to be required to have a retention pond,
Yeah,
whereas residential, you don't.
you're done. Yeah, so I can totally see a commercial using majority of their land for the commercial use. Residential, uh, definitely not, 70%, that's got high. But yeah, I think for residential areas, the 50 would be good. Other opinions?
Well, may I suggest we take commercial, because it seems to be the easier one to talk about here.
Okay.
We kind of go through that, and we're gonna say, because right now it's saying a 5,000 square foot minimum lot width for commercial property. 50-foot minimum on the width, 800-foot maximum on the width. 100-foot minimum depth, 800-foot max. 80% of that lot for building coverage, 80% of that lot for impervious surface and parking facilities. Setbacks, 15 minimum, 80 max. Again, 15 on the sides, 15 on the rear. And you can go up to 5 stories on the commercial corridor.
What height will our ladder truck service?
So the way our current code reads is 3, and it's not, I don't want to, hinder any development based on the height of the ladder truck, because that's not going to save all end all vertical development.
Right. Well, some people don't understand the reason we got a ladder truck. They think that
Horizontal.
we already have 3-story buildings. They don't understand it allows us to have 3-story buildings.
But it's also for horizontal
Reach out.
and large setbacks and
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah. And they don't get it, so it's
Yeah.
like, that's the reason, having a ladder truck can lower your homeowner's insurance.
And I hate to pick on another department, and I'm not picking them, but it's just a fact. We're gonna be hindered by vertical development based on our water system.
Right.
And because you gotta be able to elevate that water in standpipes and provide the proper fire suppression. And our current system is not capable of doing that.
Oh,
So absent, we've got some stuff right here on 365 and 41 that there's large enough diameter pipes and GPMs to support fire flows into a sprinkler system. But when you get out of this little area right here,
Not so much.
not so.
anyone that wants to build up, they'll have to incorporate a system of storage and pressurizing
And that's expensive.
oh yeah.
So,
So if you have a commercial customer and state law provides that you do X, Y, Z, a sprinkler system, but yet we can't provide that water flow, then what does that customer do?
that's where we get creative with alternatives.
Okay.
There's a few caveats in the fire code that allow some alternative, less desirable methods. But
Okay.
there's ways to work around that.
And I don't mean to get a sidetrack, but I've heard what you're saying, and I think that's one of our problems, that we don't have the size, infrastructure that we need.
No, we don't. Again, that's not to preclude, vertical development. We can do it. We've got to be smart about it. We've got to plan very diligently when we do that. But I do think 5 stories is probably a bit for us right now. And I'm pretty comfortable with the 3 that we have in the books, unless we can be sure that we've got appropriate water supply going into whatever it is. That's the only concern I have in that commercial corridor. And kind of the same.
Well, I would concur then. Get rid of 5 and put 3.
But the way it's also written is 5 stories max. The planning commission can always come back and say, hey, can't do it right now in this area based on infrastructure, we're going to be limited in area.
Okay.
Again, anybody that's wanting to do that has to come before the planning commission. and that's when the regulation would come into effect.
If you look at Blackhawk Industries, or Molten, excuse me, I mean, they're wanting to put a fire suppression sprinkler system in their building, but our water supply can't supply them the water that they need. So, they can't do it. And that's fairly close. I mean, it's right next to number one. Number one can do it, but we can't get it back there because of the diameter of the pipe. Just food for thought on a commercial corridor and vertical growth. It's doable for the second. About it.
You get figured out what was in the restroom?
Yeah, we're all done.
It's all done, good to go.
In the industrial zone, and just so you know, when we did tighten up the Heart of Mayflower, the last meeting, we no longer have an industrial zone in the city of Mayflower. Doesn't exist. The base zone provides it, but all of our overlay does not allow for industry in the city of Mayflower. So food for thought on that. So when we do start looking at this, we might incorporate an actual industrial zone. On paper, we have it, but in practice, we do not. Because the Heart of Mayflower explicitly prohibits industrial zones and warehousing.
Mm-hmm.
No, so they just went and they just said, basically, we don't want this type of activity in town.
In
The Heart of
that
Mayflower.
Yeah.
Well, one of the issues that we have, as you pointed out earlier, comparing Mayflower with Bologna or Glen or whatever, you've got vast areas in Greenbrier and Bologna. We don't.
Right.
We don't. And so to come in to our city right here, especially on the west side, where's that going to occur? You know, as far as the industrial part, we just don't have the land. We just don't have the land that is available for something of that size. So again, well, it has never been the intent of Mayflower, I think, with all the previous administrations, that we want to develop Mayflower into a large commercial and industrial site. I don't think that's ever been the concept. We've been wanting to be known as a bedroom community type situation with the proper amount of commercial and retail that's to be available for the quality of life for here. So I think that was the intent. Not to say that we don't want that, it's that it doesn't make sense to have an industrial area when that can better be used as somewhat of a small commercial or a residential area. So that we didn't want to put those limitations on anyone that was looking at that particular property.
Yeah, sure. If Apple wanted to put up something down here, we talk to them about it.
Exactly.
Well, there's nothing to preclude from, other interests from, doing those type of facilities outside the city limits.
Sure, yeah.
And if the need arises one day, we can always address it, Someone comes in and does want to build an industrial park. If they're in town, they can look at zoning for it, but doesn't sound like it's gonna happen anytime soon, so.
No, again, so, the way it's currently written on this document, the minimum lot size is an acre for any industrial development. So, that pretty much precludes most of the available property in the town. It's a zone that's there. And obviously, we'd still have to apply it to grandfather some of our existing uses in. It would be non-conforming at that point. But as far as the commercial corridor and industrial, I don't see anything that's worrisome other than the 5 stories max on height. And again, I'm not really, I don't know if I want to say, bring that down to 3 or not. I guess in the future, we would hope the infrastructure would be upgraded at some point, but we can also go back and amend that at that time as well. So take it to 3, leave it at 5, with planning commission recommendation.
I would say leave it at 5. It doesn't limit us for future growth. We would have to amend for future growth. Should we get the infrastructure, no one's gonna build a 5-story building without the infrastructure, so we don't have to worry about somebody actually coming in and doing it, because they can't get water to the top 3 stories. So, yeah, my opinion is leave it at 5. It's not hurting anything. No one's gonna touch it right now.
So everybody's good with setbacks, side, front, rear, commercial corridors and industrial, 80% building coverage for commercial lots.
Anybody else?
So looking at all these neighborhood zones, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, essentially. I know the town center is kind of the neighborhood center is kind of a mixed use, but would it be easier to say, what do we want in Mayflower? What do we want as a residential zone? And then work it from there, instead of trying to fit this to what we have.
Yeah,
we wanna start
case
with.
in point, do we even need, the walkable town center?
No.
At the present moment, no.
I would say we eliminate this. To me, this just complicates the issue.
Yeah.
There are some things that, you gotta remember that this was deemed guidelines. And in some areas, they love this. You know, it applies to certain cities. With us, there's several things it doesn't. And I think it muddies the water.
Do we need neighborhood center? Walker Town Center. You know, Vineyard didn't build, a center where everyone hangs out at the middle of their neighborhood. Vineyard Two's not gonna do that. I don't think the Reach is gonna do that.
I do want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but some of the potential and long-term plans for some of that Interstate Drive kind of deals with some of this town center vibe with retail on the bottom and live-work units above that. That's kind of what this area zeroes in on.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
And
There's a potential plan for it, and we'll keep it.
that's, how do I say that? I don't think we want to eliminate that. Because, we're hoping to move in that direction.
Gotcha. Even.
And that's not to say, again, we can't come back and amend some of this stuff.
Right. If we have a potential use for it, let's keep it on.
Because that would allow kind of a blended use of residential and commercial. And I kind of think that's the direction some of us gonna go.
Would Airbnb and Vrbo and all that, would that just fall into our residential neighborhood? Would we need to
It's a side bill home. I know we kind of talked on that. And there was some provisions that we went back and discussed regarding that, and very little regulation in state law. So then there was a bill that failed in the legislature that really tried to force the cities out of regulation regarding short-term rentals, and that did fail. The appetite's there to try to stop cities from regulating that. So I would suggest we don't get too heavy into that. I believe when we were talking about it, the only thing that we were going to do is make them do something similar to a privilege license, which registers that property and just make sure that they attest they've got a fire extinguisher, smoke alarm, stuff like that.
Right.
But other than that,
Pay the tax.
Well,
Be safe, don't be loud, pay the tax.
But as far as any other regulations that we have on any Airbnbs, we don't even have right now, correct me if I'm wrong. Barbara, you and I talked about this a while back. Right now, we don't even have, a privilege license for, at a minimum, to operate a Airbnb.
Our current code doesn't even recognize that such facilities even exist.
It's silent, which puts us in a bind, so we can't enforce
Well,
anything.
I was talking to someone just the other day, had a water problem, a drainage problem, but they thought it was ours, and come to find out it was not the city, it was theirs. But in talking with this gentleman, he was talking about that he has roughly 12 or 13 Airbnbs within the city limits of Mayflower.
Yep.
And the house he was going to purchase was going to be turned into an Airbnb.
It's a booming business.
I'm sorry.
It's a booming business and
That's,
people,
that's what he was saying.
yeah, there are investors that just buy them just to do
Yeah,
Airbnb.
right, and that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's going to benefit us because this house that he was buying had been, it had been abandoned for a number of years. So he's going to really make it nice, so that's a benefit, an asset to us. My point or my comment surrounds, we need to make sure that we're getting the sales tax off of that Airbnb. It's my understanding that they're collecting it because most are going through an agency that's their business to do all this online scheduling and stuff. That's what he was telling me, that basically they just pay the fee. Somebody, they take photos of the house, put it out there. Hey, if you want it, here's the available dates. You pay for it with a credit card and that type of thing. And
There's a few listed on Airbnb and Vrbo. There's not 13, so I don't know what service they're using, but on those two, we have 2 or 3 listed. So it'd be interesting to see what service he's listing on, so we can see if there's others there.
how many did you say you thought we had?
There's only 2 or 3 listed on Airbnb and Vrbo's with VRBO. There's only 2 or 3 listed there.
Over a year ago, we had almost 6.
Yeah, between the two platforms, I think I was able to come up with 6 or 7 in the city limits, and it's been months.
Yeah.
I was looking the other night when we were talking about it, I pulled it up on my laptop while we were here for council. And I searched.
You only found 3?
2 or 3 of them, yeah. There were, some outside the city, Maumelle, Conway, and things like that, but yeah, there were only 2 or 3 that were listed. But I mean, those aren't the only 2 reservations. They're the 2 biggest, but they're not the only 2.
Well, I guess also brings the issue up, do we need to even do anything? Other than what we've already got.
Well, so again, we talked about this on page 26, what we will and won't do. That addresses short-term rentals. A lot of it's safety regulations and double back on our noise ordinances. But it does say, item 5, operators are responsible for collecting and remitting all applicable room, occupancy, and sales tax requirements of state or city codes. Shall provide proof of homeowner's fire hazard liability insurance and liability coverages. So there is some regulatory stuff that we can do to have them registered as a business in the city. Make sure they're meeting the minimum fire code standards. Really, beyond that, somebody's private home, I don't want to be sticking my nose too far on that. As long as they're paying the taxes, the AP taxes, they're obliged to pay.
Well, at this point, it's a business, it's not a private home. So,
But in terms of what you just said, in terms of this is a business, would that not be commercial?
It is, but when you rent that out, I mean, renters have rights. So as a city and the enforcement officer here, I'm very hesitant to enter somebody's, whether they own it or renting it, it's their property. They're in care and custody of that.
Oh, we don't
I don't
want
want
to
to
get
be
into
snooping
that.
around there too much.
But in terms of, is that a zoning violation?
Not unless we make it,
Okay.
but as it sits right now.
I think that we might want to name those and include them so that it's in our code that Airbnbs are okay in our residential neighborhoods, that we're open to that, you're gonna have to follow the rules. But we're definitely open to having that business in town.
I know the bill that went before the legislature, it passed one house and failed in committee in the other. So it did gain some traction, and it pretty much,
It's not going away.
it'll surface, because these are becoming more and more commonplace.
So if we do the basics, be safe, clean up, don't be loud, pay your taxes.
The one thing that I'm talking with other mayors and throughout, one thing that the number one issue with the Airbnb is parking. There was complaints about, okay, you have some people that view Airbnb as a great place to have a huge party.
Oh, that's a
You
big.
know,
it's
that
big
type of
news.
thing. And so parking becomes a huge problem, you know, and that type of thing. And I think we already have something on the books, don't we, Chris, that a certain activity or whatever can occur, or as far as sound.
We've got a very,
Noise ordinance.
Noise ordinance.
very healthy noise ordinance that kind of, it inhibits a lot of the stuff when it's enforced.
Right.
It's
But
probably one of the
also-
longest noise ordinances I've ever seen in my life. It's robust.
But also they were talking about, is there not a provision that if you get X number of complaints from the surrounding landowners, say that this one house that has just on an ongoing basis, that they lease to people that are loud, they come in late at night, you know, that sort of thing.
So we've also got a very healthy public nuisance.
That's where it would fall into.
It's complaint driven. The city can't do anything unless, we actually receive written complaints regarding that. But once those complaints are received, then we can start enforcement on that.
I mean, I've had an Airbnb across the street from me for several years now, and never had a problem about it. The guy uses it for like construction crews.
And that's what this guy does.
Yeah.
He says that typically 95% of his homes are rented out to some type of service providers. One thing he was talking about, he has a whole house full of guys that they don't mess with anyone, they leave early, they come in late, don't even use the grill, that type of thing, that they install solar panels
Yeah, solar.
all over the area, but they come back here to you know, to live, so.
Lot cheaper to put 6 people up in a house than it is to rent a hotel room for a month. Just rent the house for a month. It's cheaper, and the homeowner is benefiting from it, the city benefits from it. So yeah, we've had construction crews in and out of that house for years, and never once had a problem. They've never been loud, they've never trashed the place, never done anything. They've always been great neighbors. So they walk up down the street and talk to you. So, I mean, I literally have it in my backyard or my front yard. It's fine. Never had an issue.
Well, it sounds like, you know, that's what we're doing.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
we also have provisions that if we have, not that situation, that we have laws on the books that we can address that.
Yeah.
But we just want to make sure that we're getting that sales tax revenue
Yeah.
off of these.
Yeah.
Well, so kind of again, we want a residential zone, we want a commercial corridor. Kind of agreed to industrial. But I believe kind of the low density residential is going to be kind of for our traditional site-built homes. But looking at some of the setback requirements for that, some decent sized lots, decent sized homes. So as we kind of thumb through some of the subsequent pages, and again, this is all devil in the details. So I guess the easiest way to go through this, would it be beneficial if I were to overlay kind of our existing code to the most appropriate category that's currently here, so we can kind of easily compare and contrast what we have.
That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of read my mind, because that will allow us to modify the existing code, to get rid of things we don't like or add things that are needed without gaps. Yeah, I'm really afraid of gaps. If we miss something in the existing code that we do want to get here, make sure that we cover all of that.
So for the next workshop, let me bring, we'll have two tables, the EDO table and our existing. Then we can better, I'll match all the categories as best I can with the code that we have. So we can evaluate all the regulated items. Comparison, see what we want to do, what we don't.
Yeah.
So I would suggest we skip the next pages and kind of jump into 44. And that's where we kind of actually get into some of the visual descriptions of these lots, of these zones. But with 44, that kind of dives into the agricultural zone. As it sits right now, is kind of our placeholder. I don't think the city's intention is to have a bona fide agricultural zone.
Not within the city limits, I don't think. Well, I think that, I'm thinking of, the greenhouses over here that he annexed.
So our current code, we have the A1, but we also have A2. So the A2 would be commercial ag operations up there. They would fall under, when and if we get around to kind of rezoning all of that annexed area. It's individual uses versus the blanket we put on there right now.
And again, I don't know if we necessarily have to match the zone to what's there. I mean,
We don't.
Right. We just don't want to.
I live over there by that. I love it though. I mean, it's
Yeah.
good. I like it.
I just don't want to be anywhere really that messes with somebody's current business or anything.
And honestly, so even, because at some point, we are going to have to get together and put them out and draw lines and boundaries. And potentially run, hurt some feelings along the way. I mean, it's gonna happen. But that nothing precludes that existing use, even if it's deemed non-conforming.
And I think what we need to do is the planning commission decide not what's there, but what
Could be there.
we would like to see there. And I say that, I mean, I know that family is looking at eventually getting out of that.
Yeah.
And selling, so maybe it changes to a big neighborhood over there. I don't know.
They're one of the big three suppliers in the state.
Yep.
So
But if they're looking to sell that, someone's probably the one to buy it to keep it going.
That's true.
Yeah, he's got 40-some greenhouses over there. She's told him no more. If he builds another one, she's done. I know them and I'm friends with them, so we annexed them. I just want to make sure that we did not, do something that hinders them or hamstrings them.
So, do we want to even evaluate the agricultural lot list and standards? Because I just don't see us permanently classifying anything ag.
Yeah, I don't
I
either.
think the general intent was, when we had the annexation, it opened us up to, we didn't know what was going to be built there. And until the property owners come in and say, hey, this is what we're going to do, we thought that just the best blanket or to neutralize everything was to zone all agricultural.
And that's the best practice recommended in this document.
And that's what we were trying to follow, based on recommendations of other mayors that went through a lot of things. So no matter what in that program, to your point, is it even necessary for us to go into and try to dissect all of this that could be done in the agricultural zone? Include someone coming in, whether it be a residential development or commercial business. It's got to come before the planning commission. And then again, goes back and looks at, okay, is this a good fit, so on and so forth. We're not there yet.
No.
But we've already reached the point that it's all been, we're covered in terms of, neutralizing everything. As far as the zoning of the residential, I mean, commercial, agricultural. But I think it's a waste of time for this commission to go through this with that.
Skip 44. Low density residential, you're looking at 90-foot minimum lot width. And so the only thing that's really come to my mind, when we got that kind of sprawled out land is maybe like over on the north of bypass. Some of the bigger areas that have a little more wide open space. And again, you know, I mean, that right now, most of that's kind of some agricultural right now. But do we even want to keep that low density residential on the books for such large lots? Those are pretty big lots. 90-foot minimum, 150 feet minimum depth,
It's about, what is that, about a half an acre?
14,500 square foot minimum lot.
Only about a half acre.
Yeah, don't get me on the math, it's not my friend.
I was thinking it was an acre, 36,000.
There's a piece of me that wants to say yes, because that's where I'm at over there. And I wouldn't want someone right next to me just putting up homes. But at the same time, I mean, we need to utilize our land here efficiently. I'm not sure if we're gonna actually zone anything that,
No, and we don't have to, we can define these criteria, and
yeah.
if we don't see that this is a good fit right now, it's just on the books and we deal with it later. We can apply it if that situation presents itself.
90 foot, 150 foot.
So the lot size minimum is a third of an acre, exactly a third of an acre. There's 43,560 square feet in an acre. So this gives us 33.3. Which the picture seems a lot larger, because I think of my house being on an acre. And the minimum being a third of that, small.
Not to scale, is that what you're saying?
But, you know, these are minimums, and this is a very minuscule amount of property in the overall city, so. It's a classification we can keep, we can apply. In areas like Leona and everything kind of north of 89 going up Snubs in that way. That's the only place that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, we don't have abundance of this. We're in the minority of large lot subdivisions.
These are large, so I don't see anything, you know, absolutely that's unreasonable as far as the setbacks. They're almost consistent with what we got now. Yeah, they are. Got driveways. So we can keep that and just apply it in a very narrow area.
Yeah, almost like it just as an as needed basis.
I guess the only anomaly Ms. Barber just pointed out, the rear lot 20-foot setback versus our traditional 15, an additional 5 foot. I don't see that being a deal breaker on such a large lot anyway. I'm just going to kind of pencil in we're okay with that.
Okay.
Kind of brings us on 46, dealing with driveways and parking. So right now, I mean, what we just passed, We don't allow front yard fences in the city of Mayflower without planning commission approval in any zone. That just got corrected last meeting. But the UDO kind of was gonna offer a little bit of flexibility with that to do front yard fences with some specific criteria. Shall be picket or ornamental iron style and not exceed 3.5 feet in height. Shall not be solid or opaque. Shall not be chain link. For a front yard fence. And that's kind of consistent with, again, you know, the Ona neighborhood, Chad over the Pennaprime across from you, right there at the corner of the bypass, they got the wooden fence that it's an attractive fence, and it's no more than 3.5 feet off the ground. But it definitely covers up that front yard. But you can see straight through it. It's not a safety hazard.
Now, where's that?
It's, on Miller in 89, where Pennaprime is.
Yes,
That residential lot, that,
across from the cemetery. Yeah.
and over in your neck of the woods, there's a few fences like that as well.
I can think of some of the opposite. My father-in-law basically built a wall in front of his house.
Yeah, those are out there too. But that wouldn't be allowed here.
Right.
But this would give some people the option to have a front yard fence if it met those 3 criteria.
The only thing I think I might add is, where does the front yard start? I would think it would start at the edge of your house.
Starts at the front of the house.
That's what I
But
would,
it's always.
that's what I would, but it's not written here, so I would just add it for clarity, because someone's gonna come along and say, oh, it's at the front of my porch, and I got a 15-foot porch. Or something like,
I don't understand what you're getting at.
like, the front yard starts at the edge of your house.
Okay.
Like where your front door. So that's the front yard. So we don't want someone coming in and saying, oh, well, because of my house, but then I built this patio with this porch and I want the fence to go off. That's where my front yard starts, because I've got this 15-foot patio. We don't want that, because then it's gonna possibly obscure.
They would, okay, all right.
So we would want to define the front yard as the start of the front of the house to
Okay.
the street. Just so that there's no ambiguity and someone finding a loophole and arguing that we get a 6-foot fence up to 3 feet before the road you can't see.
Gotcha.
I want to say our current code defines it as anything in front of your front building line. Kind of mirror that language that's
Yeah.
already existing.
Yeah. Just eliminate a potential loophole. The house that.
Do we want to include any language about being sure that they're mindful of city easements? Yeah. Somebody's eventually probably going to get their fence ripped up because they've crossed, especially with some of our narrow streets. We're doing like 25, 30 feet off center line. That's well into some of these smaller lots and smaller neighborhoods.
Or dig over utility lines. I had to have 811 come out 3 times to find one spot in an acre to plant a tree over the last few weeks. Everywhere I went, the first 2 places I wanted to plant it, I painted my white circle, and they came out and said, no, you have utility lines here. So you get smaller and smaller, maybe more compact near the ground.
Why does this seem to be only tied to low density residential? Is that the intent? And then right there at the end, it says, because it's in that section,
Mm-hmm.
and then it says apartment complexes, residential subdivisions, or gated communities. So then it's like pulling in other zoning areas. I don't know.
It is an
Just-
odd place to put the document, but it's under 4.4, and it's a 4.42.
Yeah,
So the way I kind of look at this is it's defined low density residential.
right.
Then it goes to further on and say for fence requirements applicable to all zones, see section 7.1.
Okay, wait.
7.1 is definition.
Okay. Help me out. I'm looking on my phone. What page? There's 7-1.
7-1 is 159. That just starts off with the appendix for definitions.
Okay.
And that's not to say that, we couldn't apply this. If we wanted, and an appetite to do that citywide. Because I think the principal concern is high fences in the front yard, or opaque fences you can't see through. Chain link fences, stuff that's not very visually appealing and is a safety hazard. But other than that,
What else ought to go in here is, plants, trees, and shrubs. Because those can obscure, at the end of Cross Street Center, that, house that's next to that church, it used to have these, like, mini trees, things that were all along center there, and you pull up and you could not see to the, there was, I mean, you had to creep out the road to see if there was a vehicle, and or a couple times you had to back up.
Those have been cut down, haven't they?
Oh, yeah, they were cut down a couple years ago.
I know
Yeah.
what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
those finally got cut down. I told Ollie my wife for a long time that I hated those things because you couldn't see around them. I'd just take the other way out of Cross Street because you couldn't see anything. But they finally did take it down. So, I mean, those can obscure traffic just as bad.
well, we've got 2 city codes that, outside of the zoning with force compliance with that.
Okay.
Anything that creates a traffic hazard or obscures vision.
Yeah.
That falls under separate chapters that we can enforce.
And we want to ensure that that comes into this as well.
The way I interpret it, yes, this chapter applies to low density. But we can expand that to citywide.
Yeah.
Or we can leave it as it is now, let's go to the planning commission.
Well, I mean, you build fences, I mean, you go over to Vineyard, it's not low density, but, you got fences between the houses. Come up to a road, we want to be able to see, so I would think that was a good catch, it's only in a low density. I think that it should apply to, regular residential as well.
We can make a note of that.
Yeah.
And see what it looks like, and if I run across any contradictory language.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Evaluate that.
It's maybe closer than the Vineyard, and be like, why? Use those.
So much of this, I mean, it's all devil in the detail stuff, but. Trying to look at this other section that references 418.5. So page 91 talks about cities in general, or excuse me, fences in general. The
You're on page one?
91, sir.
91, thank you.
418.5, where it talks about barbed wire fences, raised and electric fences, general requirements. This would apply to any zone.
Any zone. Zones.
So chain link is permitted, unless it's explicitly prohibited in the zone. Can't do sheet metal.
I don't think I've ever seen a sheet metal fence.
There's few.
Yeah. I don't doubt it, I've never had the opportunity to see one. I can only imagine what it looks like.
The section A, subsection C, I think we agreed that we would not want to have this be a permitted process, so I'd recommend deleting that.
We still want to leave the part about being built to the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code. No.
I think it just muddies the waters. If we're not gonna regulate it, permit it, and inspect it, please,
No point.
as long as they build it to where, you know, the code says you can build it, we're out of it.
Okay.
And it goes in, to my existing concern, shall not be placed in any rights of way or easements. Can be within 3 feet of a hydrant, and, but there are some concerns, even with that property that we were just talking about in Miller, 89. They've got their front yard, no wood plank fence, but they put a gate because it did block the hydrant. So they did build a little 3-foot gate so we could get to the fire hydrant. And that's an exception I'm okay with, as long as it's not locked.
Right. Put it that way.
That's the next issue. Make sure that it's not locked.
Build a 3-foot gate around it, put a Knox box on it.
I mean, I at some point, we'll just kick it down.
It's coming down, it's gonna be open. no
One
matter
or
what.
another, it's gonna move.
The finished side of the fence shall face the street public space. I know in Maumelle, that was always a sticking point when I lived there. We had several people, they tried to do the pretty side in, pretty side goes out. And that's pretty much reference of this if you're facing a public street. Any discussion on that part?
On part A or the whole page?
This will be section F.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm sorry, I'm trying to jump, kind of going back to where we were. I don't see anything in here about front yard though, or, you know, trying to address that,
Sure.
just outside of the low density residential. So yeah, I think that one does need to be looked at.
For barbed wire. Section B, subsection B. I know some places use barbed wire and they have it facing outward, and that prevents people from scaling the fence. If it's facing inward, someone can scale the fence and hop over the barbed wire. If it's facing out, they can't get over it. So that's why they face it out. It's for security.
Right.
Facing it in is almost like not having a fence. I mean,
It's like a prison.
yeah, well, if you look at prisons, yeah, they'll face to where the people can't get into it. So like, you'll see them a lot around like storage facilities. Most of them have it facing out to prevent people from scaling the fence. Otherwise, you scale the fence, you throw a jacket over the razor wire or barbed wire and hop right over it. It's easy. If
If
it's
it's pointing out, if it's pointing in,
yeah, if it's facing out, you gotta be an acrobat to get over that fence. So I would suggest striking section B, subsection B, so that we don't limit businesses who have that. Most of them have barbed wire for security purposes. Having it facing in is pointless.
Works for me.
Same, going on to C there. It says permitted total height allowed by the zone. Is that listed in fence heights? Flipping back just to look.
See where like barbed wire was called out with the height allowance. Would that just be for general fences in zone? Would that fall into? Because like lightly populated or low density section, outside of that, it doesn't speak to fences, so we would have a gap there.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. The code's silent, then it opens it up to interpretation. So down below, concertina and razor wire fences are similar in nature to barbed wire fences for commercial security is concerned, and they do pull out in section C, subsection C. They do say 7 feet in height, and the total height including wire may not exceed 8 feet. So we could, since those are similar uses, we could borrow that language from section C and apply it to section B as well. That a business, whether they're going to use barbed wire, concertina, or razor wire, same type of fence, same type of regulation.
Works for me. I'm making those.
Cool, so we can just,
Use C for, okay,
and then,
Control both times.
yeah.
yeah, and then just pull out the concertina or razor wire for when we move to B, use barbed wire.
There you go.
No electric fence.
I have an electric
Conditional
fence.
use.
I said, I have an electric fence.
This one says you would need city council approval for that.
That's what I read. It's for livestock, you know,
Sure.
so it's interesting then, all right.
I don't know, I think that's excessive. Get city council approval for an electric fence.
Well, I mean, if we're of the mind that we're not, as a city, going to regulate, inspect, and permit these things, I really think our involvement should be minimal.
Yeah, right. We want to be super heavy-handed on stuff that really doesn't matter. So let's put an electric fence to keep the cat limited, do it. Or chickens, or whatever it is.
You talk about the city limits, are you supposed to have cattle in the city?
So are we eliminating
Yeah,
D?
yeah, we can take D,
Well, like that agricultural area right now, that got zoned.
If someone doesn't want to get shot by their neighbor's electric fence, they can stay out of their yard.
And Mayor, your favorite paragraphs on the preceding page on 90 regarding dumpster screening and utility screening. Just food for thought, if you haven't read that one yet.
Well, my thought on that is, you know, every new commercial business that we have approved, that's the one thing that I really look at. We're talking about upgrading, you know, as far as our community. You can just go right down the road and you see 3 open dumpsters down here. Businesses require that. We're not saying that they don't, but they become unsightly. And on new construction, we make sure that they have some type of covering, they're behind a fence type situation. I think that's something we need to move forward.
But I will say our existing code requires them.
As far as new,
No, well, I mean, at the time, this, at least this overlay was dated in 15. So we've got 10 years where that should have been enforced.
oh, is it, so that's already on the books that even grandfather or existing businesses need to have
If you're
some
within
type of
that
enclosure.
overlay,
You know, the city's not even in compliance. We got a dumpster 20 feet from the other side of the window. That's not even close. You know, so I mean, even the city's out of compliance.
Yeah. What do you find there?
That's been one I've been hesitant to enforce. It's because that issue is so pervasive and it's really never been handled very aggressively in the past.
Well, before we enforce it with the business, we better enforce it with ourselves. I mean, we need to lead the way, not get excused from it. We need to be the leaders on that, so. And I imagine businesses will be pretty upset with us if we go and tell them they gotta clean their house and we're not cleaning ours.
And
The
then
rules for these, something you don't want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. They would be fully within their right to be upset about that. So we got to lead with following the rules.
But how does that work if you have a chain link fence around a facility? And within that chain link fence, you have a dumpster that clearly can be seen.
It's not screened. So I want to say with our current code, it has to be with similar building materials as the primary structure. And it has to be an opaque fence, and it actually regulates the height. So the current code is designed, with you're not seeing it. You can assume all day long what's behind there,
But if you can see it,
but
then
it's not
It's
screened.
being by an enclosure,
It's in
violation.
And, you know, that's something that I can't enforce. There will be pushback. It's never been enforced before, so. And like Mr. Snyder said, we're not in compliance ourselves.
I think before we really, go in and start knocking on doors, well, let me put it like this. We've got higher priorities. We've got higher priorities. Not to say we're not belittling that. That is something that we would really like to see, businesses take on their own. It may be that, we send out everybody a letter that said, hey, please consider doing this.
Well, like the Knox boxes, we can give people a year to get it done.
Well, yeah, or sometimes happen like this.
Yeah, I mean, we did that with the Knox boxes, and we didn't get much pushback for that.
I didn't hear someone word.
Well, whatever if we just send something out, let's make sure that we have examples of what they can use.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, not to just, hey, you got to do this and you investigated, here's what, some examples that is acceptable, that type of thing. Now, someone was asking me, and we've already allowed this, if you've got a chain link fence, they can buy, I don't know what it's called, these blinders or.
Those slabs that go in between.
What is it?
Those slabs that go in
Slats, or
between.
whatever, that's, thank you. That basically, you can see through it a little bit, but again, it takes the unwanted, sight on this.
I mean, if you have to try to see the dumpster,
Yeah.
then I'd say that the business owner has done a sufficient job in obscuring it,
Well,
putting it behind it.
My point is, you don't, one thought was, oh, I gotta go and build, hire a mason to come in and build, a cinder block wall. You're talking about some big dollars. Now, again, if that's what you want to do, depending on your situation, then that's fine. But if we could offer some examples of what would be acceptable, that's at a minimal cost.
Yeah. So those things are just like plastic or vinyl or something. They
It's
just,
blinders,
Yeah.
as far as basically what
they just slide in between your, every other rung or every other slot in your fence, but yeah, those are not expensive. And I would think that we would allow that. I mean, we set kind of a minimum standard, and people want to exceed that and build a shiny new.
Well, if you'll notice, a lot of these places that have the big walls up, the posts that they use to hold the gates are not adequate. A lot of the gates, you'll see these facilities and the gates are either torn off and they're leaning up against the building or
They drew it out in the middle
yes.
because they start leaning.
Right, because
Yeah,
they're so large. With this situation with a chain link fence, those double gates aren't that heavy. It depends on how many you have, obviously, but, there may be another, recommendation that if you build something that's going, because they've got to open those and close,
Yeah.
as far as the.
It's got to be accessible to the truck to empty it.
Exactly. So we would welcome our commercial businesses to do that. But yes, if we could give them another year or something of that nature. I don't want your time to be taken to go and deal with with
dumpster.
dumpsters, and we've got all these other.
Bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not diminishing that.
Right.
It would help the overall image.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly, and, you know, as I do site inspections and fire inspections, I mean, those are conversations I can have.
Some notes are probably coming.
Well, it's on the board.
Yeah.
Currently in violation of it regardless.
And then, of course, laugh and say, yes, I know the city is out of compliance and we're working on that too.
That's why we're not mandating it right now. It's-
Right.
But we need to start working towards it, find a plan.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it's 8:40.
Yes, sir.
Start doing 2 hours,
Yep.
leave it at fences.
So are we stopping at section 4.19 signs?
Yeah, that'll be page 46, was kind of where we left off.
I'm sorry?
Page 46. That was a subsection on fences and low density residential. We jumped ahead a little bit to
Right.
add some clarity to that.
That's just. Okay, hopefully we'll be back here in a couple of weeks on that Thursday for another fun meeting.
I want to make a quick announcement real quick. I'm going to have to unfortunately step aside from the planning commission. It's been a pleasure working with everyone, but time is of the essence for me. I haven't even eaten dinner tonight. So, I've enjoyed my time here. I'll make it for the next UDO, but even for the next two, I already have pre-commits. I'm going to be out for vacation on the next one and then out for work on the following month. So, just wanted to say I appreciate everyone. Really enjoyed working here with y'all, and hopefully y'all can find someone pretty quick.
We appreciate you serving.
Yeah.
It's difficult to find people that want to serve on committees, commissions, but we do appreciate your time
Yeah.
and your contribution. It's truly been an asset.
Yep.
Thank you for giving us a heads up.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know of anyone,
I tried to look around. I asked a couple people to see if they were interested, and most politely declined.
Time is precious nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say from a personal standpoint, I really appreciated your presence on the commission, being a new chairperson. It was a little daunting when I came in, when we were first looking at wiping the entire commission, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're getting rid of all this institutional knowledge, things that have happened. And when we got to keep you and Chad on here, it was a huge relief to me, because I was like, okay, there's people here who have been around.
Mhm.
I can do all the studying, I can watch all the videos, but there's people who have been around, and I've appreciated both of your experience here. I've appreciated you seeing things that others don't see and bringing them up, that other perspective that I myself missed, and I appreciate, like the sidewalks. I never even thought about sidewalks. And you said, hey, we're gonna have people getting run over. You brought it up, so that type of perspective and initiative, I really appreciate it. So you have been invaluable to this commission, and I appreciate your being here.
And I'd like to probably get engaged again once kids get older, so I don't plan on going anywhere. So still have a lot of vested interest in seeing Mayflower get better.
Absolutely, 100%. All right, we appreciate you, Steve.
All right, we'll see you the 29th.
Yep.
All right,
Be
perfect.
here.
Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank all of you.
Oh, can I get a motion to adjourn? Second.
I second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed?
Who made the motion?
Stephen made the motion.
Sure, I made the motion.
Oh, okay. I'll try to-
Someone.
All right, Chad made the motion, I second.
There you go.
Steve, thank you so much.
Steve, I'm Counselor Charles Peter here.
It's good for that. Trying to get him to move. Like, we all have this thing, and it's only going to get more complicated. And, but it's all.